Greetings, my name is Perplex, and today I'm going to show you how to create this sound. Now do not worry, even though there are two instruments we are going to be using, they are still simple, but exact. We need to have a piano. I'm using Contact 5's New York Concert Grand, but you can use whichever one you prefer. If you don't have Contact, just use a piano. And the pluck, which really isn't that much of a pluck, but technically it is at the same time. I'm going to be using Massive. That is the only way to create this, so you have to have it. I apologize in order to create this, so please do have that. And obviously there are effects lining the bottom, which I have turned off, so that while making the sound, they do not interrupt. So we'll start off with Massive. Now as you can see, this is the fully completed sound and saved as a preset. It's going to take a while if I recreate it myself and then narrate and then come back to look at it. So I'm just going to do it as I go with the finished product. So starting with the oscillators, as you can see, we're using the very first setting on both of these. The VA saw PWM, and the pulse width on the first one we're turning to 50%, and the amp is going to be all the way up. The pitch stays the same. On the second one, the second oscillator, we're going to have a pitch of -12, and we're going to keep the pulse width the same, unlike this, but we're going to turn the amp down to about here. And oscillator 3, finally, we're going to turn the pitch up 1 octave, and keep this the same, turn the amp to about 50%, in between 50% and 100, so that's more of a 75%. And we're, instead of going to use this, we're going to use a square saw 2 with a spectrum. Now on the bottom, you may notice on the bottom left there's the white noise, which is going to be very helpful to us in the sound. So make sure that's at 50% with the amp, 50%. And then make sure that there's a simple delay here. It does not really add to delay, but it softens the kick or the pluck at the beginning in a way that I enjoy it. So just put the dry wet like here, here-ish, and just keep the time wherever you wish. Now we're going to go to the first filter. We're only going to need one. As you can see, we're going to choose a low pass 2, and we're going to turn the cutoff and resonance all the way down. And we're going to bring a macro up to the cutoff and turn it all the way up, and do the same thing with the second envelope. Turn it all the way up. I'm going to go over the second envelope real quick. You could basically copy the settings, but attack just right at the first level, just a little below there. Decay, you really don't need to macro this, just adjust it to about here, maybe a little bit higher since you're not using the macro. Level, like so. Like so. Level is not needed, and release probably just all the way down like it shows here. Now one very important thing, at morph you want to choose a sinoid. You're going to be doing a sinoid for envelope 2 and for envelope 4, as you see. Now envelope 4 is very important as it determines the overall sound of this entire patch, so make sure it's pretty much exact in order to form the pluck sound at the very beginning. So see where the release is here, turn it to just above where it starts. The level, which is a macro on it, to about halfway in order to adjust the build on it, and keep the macro about right there. The decay, you're going to keep about halfway there. Level, as is. Attack, as is, just right below here. Pause it if you need to go over any of the settings, because I'm going to move on to voicing, which is right above the fourth envelope. Unisono, it's going to be on 1, bump it up to 2, and as you can see on Unisono spread, just bump it up a little bit there, make sure it's on. Yeah, I believe that's it for this. We can go to the effects now. Chorus, like so. We can turn the dry wet up just a little bit. You don't need to go insane on it. The rate, about 2 o'clock. Offset, about 50. I might turn up a little bit more. And the depth, keep that around 50% where it is. The reverb, for what I do, I put the dry wet here, size here, density here, and color all the way down. I believe that is it for this sound. So I'm going to move on to the effects. So, with the external effects, we're going to start off with a simple delay, which is fairly self-explanatory. It's a delay that is simple. If you're using another DAW, you're going to want to match the timing and then just adjust the feedback and dry wet so it holds it out a bit, but definitely not too much. Onto the reverb, roll off a bit at the low end, and decay time, turn that up, as well as diffuse, but not too much. The chorus is also going to be up a bit. If you have different reverb than Ableton, then just mess around until it sounds the way you would like it, but it should probably have similar settings so you can follow it as best you can. And dry wet, finally, about 50. Now the auto filter, also fairly self-explanatory. It is used or automated for the builds, but usually throughout the song it's about here. I'm just going to adjust the decay time a bit down. Not that much. Alright, and onto the final EQ. EQ8, which works like a standard EQ, so this shouldn't be too difficult to follow along with a different DAW. It focuses on the mids, on the lower mids, but it also has a boost on the treble there. Well, I think that sounds just about done. So I'm going to move on to the piano. So starting off with reverb, it is very similar to the pluck reverb when it comes to settings, as you can see. The dry wet and decay time, they're about the same, except the decay time's a bit less, like right around there, and the diffuse is not nearly as high. Instead of being like here, it's here, because diffuse does matter a lot. Reflect, however, is a bit higher. Let's just give an example there. Next up, with EQ8, I rolled off the end, just as I did with the low cut here, again to focus on the bass, if there is one in the song, and just raise the mid a bit and drop the treble. Then lastly, we're going to have an auto filter, just like with pluck, because for most of the song it's going to be down about here. And that should about do it for this particular tutorial. If you have any issues or need any assistance with these or with anything else, feel free to contact me or comment below, and have a nice day.